Welcome to TradersPost office hours for June 10th, 2025, a day that will live in infamy. I'm one of your hosts, Tom Hartman, marketing manager here at TradersPost, alongside Mike Christensen, co-founder and CSO, and John Wage, founder and CEO. We're always working to make TradersPost better day in and day out. Each week, we take a deep dive into all things TradersPost, answering your questions, gathering your feedback, and helping you get the most out of the best automated trading platform in the multiverse. We've also combed the social posts for information and guides about trading to try to help you out inside your trading environment. Guys, today, interesting day. Some days are good days. Some days are June 10th. How you guys handling it?
This one's for the record books for sure.
It's been a frustrating day, to say the least, and we understand all of our customers are pretty frustrated today as well. For those who are not aware or maybe not running any trades today through us, we have had a service outage with our hosting provider today. We have our services on Heroku, and as of this morning, roughly around, I believe, 6 a.m. Eastern time or
2
earlier.
a.m.
It's 2 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah. Their entire infrastructure has been inaccessible for us. So it's made it impossible for us to reach outside services like all the APIs with the brokers, as well as some internal services as well. Some aspects of TradersPost are up, but obviously our ability to communicate with brokers has been down all day. It is an intermittent problem. So in some cases, some signals have come through and reached the brokers and trades have been active. And of course, we've asked customers to close those trades out manually through your brokers if any of those have come through. It doesn't look like many people had that exact issue, but for many people, they just couldn't load their accounts. So we've been, of course, responding as quickly as possible to any support tickets as they come in and letting people know about the status of the incident. But this is the first outage for TradersPost ever in our history since we started in 2021. And it is definitely a frustrating one because we have zero control over the situation. We're just sitting here waiting for Salesforce and Heroku to respond to the situation and get us back up and running again. If this were something we had more control over, obviously we would be able to communicate a lot more about what's happening and how long it's going to take. But at this point, we have no ETA for when we're coming back.
So the bittersweet story here, there's two sides to this. One, it's not, our customers have been actually really good about understanding what's going on here. Like, this is, like, by definition, one of those black swan events that you can't necessarily plan for every single possible outcome. And I would have expected hordes at the gates, and that has not been the case. What has been your feedback that you've been getting from people, Mike?
Yeah, so I've personally been in the support tickets today all morning since about 6 a.m. my time. And for the most part, everybody's been pretty understanding. We do appreciate that. Of course, if there was more we could do, we would. But, we're at the moment, we're just trying to stay as communicative as possible and make sure everybody's aware of what's happening and what we're waiting for next. So one question I've been getting over the last hour or two is there any update at this point? The last update that we've seen from Salesforce, which is available on their status.salesforce.com page, was from 1822 UTC, which would have been 2:22 p.m. Eastern time. That update said that they've identified the likely trigger of the issue and are making strong progress towards a resolution. A recent automated update disrupted network connectivity on affected instances. They're working on a fix to prevent this from recurring and will provide an ETA for resolution when it's available. That was a little while ago, though, so we're still kind of waiting for an update at this point.
I think it also helped a little bit that there were Heroku, our hosting provider, is a pretty big platform, and they're built on top of AWS, and there are a lot of sites and platforms that are built on top of Heroku. So there's a lot of websites that are down today, not just TradersPost. And then coincidentally, OpenAI was also down starting at 2 a.m. Eastern time this morning. And at first, people were theorizing that maybe it was some kind of AWS issue, dependency that Heroku and OpenAI depend on. But I think that's been ruled out, at least based on the comments and the feedback that we've seen on the status page as Salesforce has worked through the issue. But definitely really frustrating. Got paged at 2 a.m. this morning, and sucks not being able to control it. That's the worst. You know, you want to be able to do something, you know, and the only thing we really can do is just communicate. So, you know, we've been really active in Discord. We sent out the mass email notification. We have our status page. Every update that we get from Salesforce, I'm basically relaying those updates to our status page, which is status.traderspost.io. Let's see Tyler's comment. Wait, who's handsome? Me or Mike or Tom or all three? I want to get clarification on this.
It's me today. All right. Sounds good. I felt like I looked pretty upset and stern there for a second because I'm in one of those moods today.
Yeah. That's just how
I just want to bring up here that this reminds me a lot of when the CrowdStrike blue screen of death happened. Was it last year everywhere? And like airports were down and like systems were down and emergency services were down. I take solace in knowing that's not what this is. All the stuff I have been seeing is stuff that's not like life-threatening. Obviously, it sucks, but we've all seen situations that's been worse. What I also like is two things. One, the TradersPost software has no problem with it, right? This is outside. This is the provider that's causing this issue, and so we take great pride, and John and Mike take a great pride in this, and that the TradersPost software is built in such a way as to be as robust as possible. In fact, we're in the process, even before this happened, with moving to Google Cloud Platform. Is that right, John? Right. And that's supposed to be, that's an alternative to Heroku. And would that have like prevented the situation like in the future? Would that make our system more robust?
I mean, it's not going to make us immune. Google Cloud could have the same type of or similar outages. You know, our setup in Heroku, it's in AWS today, and we're in what's called a private space. It's like the enterprise version. Like Heroku has like your standard regular spaces for, I don't know, sounds kind of demeaning, but your regular customers. But then you can pay extra. It's way more expensive to get a private enterprise space. So it's basically set up in AWS, and it's spread out across multiple availability zones in a single region. But the issue that we're experiencing wasn't with a specific availability zone. It was like above that. Both of the availability zones were affected by this, and our software never stopped working. People could communicate, like to send requests to TradersPost, but when TradersPost tries to communicate to the outside world, it's basically like the internet is down for our application. Like we can't talk to any of the broker APIs. We can't talk to any of the services that we use for sending emails. We can't talk to Stripe for billing. Basically every external service that we depend on, we're unable to communicate with those services. So that type of thing could happen in Google Cloud as well. But there are things that by moving to Google Cloud, it'll open up opportunities for us to improve things in the future. It's just going to take time to kind of take advantage of those things. And we've rebuilt, or we are rebuilding all of our infrastructure using a tool called Terraform. And Terraform is it's called infrastructure as code, and it basically allows you to define your infrastructure as code. So when we want to deploy our infrastructure to Google Cloud or AWS or Azure or any cloud provider or even bare metal, we're not creating everything in the cloud provider with our hands, like manually, like going in and clicking around and creating server, giving it a name. We can define it as code, and it creates it all at once consistently. So by us investing in building out our infrastructure that way, in theory, it would allow us to have multiple cloud providers. So we could be hosted primarily in Google Cloud, but we could also have like a hot standby in AWS that's offline. And then if we ever have any kind of like absolute disaster where Google Cloud gets wiped off the map, we could basically turn on that copy of our infrastructure, restore the latest database backup, and then change the domain to point at AWS instead of Google Cloud. But as you can imagine, it's expensive to run basically 2 whole copies of your infrastructure into to cloud providers. But you can keep it offline. Like you don't have to have it running. It can just be sitting there off. So you don't get billed the full amount, but it's complicated because like every day and every week we're changing our infrastructure and moving it forward. And if the standby secondary copy of our infrastructure is offline, it'll fall behind. Right. And periodically we have to like turn it on, bring it up to speed, bring it up to date with all the changes we've made. So anyways, that's just a long way to say it's like, it's complicated, it's expensive, and it's future aspirations. And there's like cost limitations where it just doesn't make practical sense. And like we, as a small bootstrapped startup, like we wouldn't be able to afford to do that right out of the gate, but we're iterating constantly on improving our technology so that, as more revenue and more money becomes available, then we basically will have the tools and the setup that will enable us to do those types of things in the future.
So I just wanted to touch on that point here is that were we to charge 5 times more for our service, right, to begin with, right? People sometimes feel like the price, they would want a lower price, but then there's these trade-offs. Sure, you can charge, 5 times more, and then you have more money in order to put money into the infrastructure in order to help mitigate situations like this. But who would want to do that, right? Who would want to come and see TradersPost at a 5 times the cost? And so I just wanted to bring that up as because there was like 1 or 2 messages, something along the lines of, well, you could have redundant systems in order to prevent something like this from happening. But can you speak to the cost of what that would actually, like the cost to the end user that they would see if you had to build something like where it completely mitigated this type of situation?
We definitely have to raise prices by about 30 or 40% in order to cover that additional cost.
Right. So it's one of those things where you have to think about these are black swan events. These are unexpected events. This is not a thing that happens at Heroku all the time. Like obviously not.
It's never happened in 4 years since we've been here.
Right.
And I mean, OpenAI has been down still today. It's again intermittent, but OpenAI is a massive company. They've got more money than they know what to do with. And even they still have issues and outages. So like, I'm not trying to make excuses or say it shouldn't happen. Like we don't want it to happen. We're going to try everything that we can to reduce the likelihood that it happens in the future. But I mentioned in Discord, like the cloud, it's like a blessing and a curse in some ways. I still think that overall the cloud is more reliable than how things were 15, 20 years ago when people were running their own hardware, where there were no redundancies. We have far more redundancies today via cloud providers than we would have had 15, 20 years ago. Probably wouldn't even been possible to bootstrap something like TradersPost 20 years ago without something like the cloud, without raising money. You would have had to have raised money to buy upfront all the servers. So like there's a way different cost upfront to bootstrap a company compared to today. So I think things overall are better and more reliable than just out of the box than they have been in the past. But it still sucks when it does happen, and it hurts the customers. But man, it's been a tough day for sure. Like I'm tired as hell. I just want things to be back up and I want things to stabilize so that we can move forward. And we've got tons of software improvements that we want to ship. And this is just a big distraction for sure.
So while we've been speaking here, I've been checking the status pages from Salesforce and Heroku, which of course, if you don't know, Heroku is owned by Salesforce. And for a minute there, earlier this morning, Heroku's status page wasn't even available because of the outage on their systems. Now it appears that the Salesforce status page keeps returning a 500 error intermittently but there's no more recent update than the last one I just provided. That said, on the Heroku page, there is a new update as of 19 minutes ago. It says that they are continuing to investigate and remediate the issue with intermittent outages. Should you need any help, just head to help.heroku.com, et cetera, et cetera. So it still feels like, just delaying, waiting for the most recent update as of right now. Nothing promising yet.
All right, but rest assured, we are paying attention. Eyeballs are on. We want this to work. If not more than what you guys want, obviously, at least just the same. Move on to the questions that we have that came in. Some support questions over the last week. So let's touch on some of them before we wrap up with a little bit of Nassim Taleb. Let's get the first question. So user asks, this is where we actually have a question and answer here. I want to get you guys' comment. I had a major signal error which cost me several $1,000s. The order was supposed to be for common shares. Can you help me understand why TradersPost sent a option signal to TradeStation for the signal, especially without any contract details in the signal? So this is what the user did. They had a strategy set up with options. The strategy was an option strategy.
Okay.
And then they sent in a signal, but they were under the impression that as long as they never referenced anything in the options in a JSON message, that we wouldn't have it would treat it as a regular shares that was purchased in the account. If you just go to the answer here. Peter, you'll move off to the answer one. So essentially, because the user had set up a strategy within a TradersPost that was specifically for options, it actually would never have purchased the regular shares. Peter, do you have the answer there on the screen? Can you move it over? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so just to explain this here. So just so you know, we don't, it's not in the signal generation that defines the asset that's being traded. That's within the strategy itself, the strategy settings itself on TradersPost.
Yeah, so when you don't specify the explicit contract to trade in the signal, you're sending the underlying, and then there are settings in the asset class section and the subscription that the user had configured to scan the option chain and find the contract to trade based on some settings, and then it bought that. So it would have to be a separate strategy and a separate subscription connected to his broker to make it common shares versus options.
If the strategy was set up for stocks and they sent in the options information, the expiration, the contract itself, then it would have purchased the options?
No, it will only purchase options based on the asset class of the subscription.
Okay.
So you can actually subscribe to a stock strategy, but you can configure the subscription to be options. That's right. So like you could have a strategy where you're running it on the underlying chart and you send SPY in the signal, but then when you receive that signal from the underlying chart, you can configure TradersPost to take that signal and instead scan the option chain of the underlying that was in the signal. And you have control like how many strikes away from at the money, how far out in the future expiration to select, and then it'll pick a contract dynamically and then use that one to create the orders.
Got it. Okay.
And the reverse is true actually too. You could have an option strategy and you could subscribe to it as a stock strategy. Right. So like the signal could actually have a full contract in it, but you could make your subscription by the underlying shares by changing the asset class of the subscription.
All right, next up, I have 3 prop accounts grouped together in NinjaTrader Tradeovate. When I place a manual trade, I set the order quantity to 3 so that each account receives 1 contract to go long. If I route the same trade through TradersPost, do I still need to set the order quantity to 3, or can TradersPost automatically send 1 contract to each account in the group without specifying a fixed quantity? So this, I've never used NinjaTrader myself, but from the conversation that the user was having, it sounded like that software or the way that that's grouped, it had a different way of spreading out the that they would have to send in 3 in order to split it out with the number of prop firms that were there. But for TradersPost, that's not the case. When we're connected to your prop firm, we're going to send the quantity that you specified. so much so that you can specify different quantities per prop firm connection.
Now, this is where the concept of inheritance comes into play. I can specify 3 in the JSON message, but each strategy subscription could decide not to listen to the signal quantity and instead define a fixed quantity of 1, or in the case of futures, that would be the only real option because we can't do dynamic position sizing with futures. But I could say in the subscription, set it to 1 for each of those accounts. And even though the JSON message says 3, it's only going to execute 1 contract in each of those accounts. Now, let's say I have 2 of those accounts. I only want to trade 1 contract, and 1 of them I want to listen to the JSON message. Then that's the way I could set it up for that 1 subscription. I could use the signal quantity instead of defining it, and that would listen to a contract size of 3, and the other accounts would just get one contract size.
Right, so that's under the position size setting within the subscription, where I can decide to listen to the signal or not listen to the signal. All right, perfect. Just to show you that over here, that would be the position size. And if you're using signal quantity, the signal quantity can be used to override the actual position size. And then you can actually set specific values for the subscription.
Yep.
All right, next up. I was wondering if there's any advantage to clicking through the specific prop firm when setting up broker connection, or if it's the same as just setting up a generic broker connection.
Well, you wouldn't be able to do it. If you choose Project X, it will immediately ask you which prop firm you want to connect with using Project X. But all Project X prop firms will behave the same. They don't differentiate behavior in the API based on which prop firm you connect. And with Project X, you can't connect Project X without choosing a prop firm. It's a little different with Tradeovate, whereas Tradeovate is like Project X, but Tradeovate is also like a broker themselves. They don't just power prop firms. So you can connect Tradeovate directly and use your Tradeovate or NinjaTrader accounts directly in TradersPost, or you can connect a prop firm to TradersPost that's powered by Tradeovate. So when you choose Tradeovate, it will also, so if you click Tradeovate in that list right there.
Oh, for me, yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, sorry, go back, click Tradeovate in the click that. See how it asks you, do you want to connect Tradeovate or NinjaTrader directly, or do you want to connect one of the prop firms? And click back. Click Project X, the bottom left under all brokers. So this is the same thing. In order to connect Project X, you have to choose which prop firm you want to connect to it with. So there's no difference from a functionality perspective. The only difference is that like after you connect TopStep via Project X, then it'll show up as a TopStep account in TradersPost instead of a Project X account. Even though it still goes through Project X, it's like the same infrastructure, same API, but it's branded as TopStep.
Got it. All right, next up. I have a strategy where I only take bullish side. I hold 100 shares of a stock. If my signal from TradingView sends a sell order of 150 shares of the stock to TradersPost, what happens to the order?
So if you set sides to bullish only, then it would sell 100. Basically, if the quantity in the signal is greater than the quantity on the open position, then it would use the quantity from the position and it would just fully exit the position. And then because you have sides set to bullish, it would not enter on the other side. If you had it set to both and you sent an action of sell, then it would, it depends on your settings, but it would exit the 100 long shares and then enter short with 50. If you had, there's another setting in the position size section called subtract exit quantity from signal quantity. And this is basically when you're sending one signal, but it's really two orders. It's one order to exit the quantity of your open position, and then the remaining quantity, basically the difference between the signal quantity and the quantity of the open position, that remainder, that difference amount is then used to enter a new position on the other side. So if you're long 100 and you send a signal to sell 150, it's going to use 100 of the 150 to exit long, and then use the remaining 50 to enter short on the opposite side.
Got it. Next up, I found simple trend lines indicator in TradingView. I have started to create a few Python scripts a few months ago. I haven't seen breakthrough yet. I found simple trend lines is supporting to my swing trade. Would you provide me access to this code for a cost you quote? I'm happy to accept the NDA for the code, and so on and so forth. Basically, this person was asking for the code for the indicator that we created on Blueprint. Just to make this clear, everything we make on Blueprint is available for free, open source, all the time. The indicators that we have on TradingView, you can go ahead and click on the source tab, and you'll be able to access the source code for that. And you'll also be able to go on the first comment for the Blueprint videos in order to grab the source code for anything that's not within TradingView. But there's nothing we've done on Blueprint so far where you don't have access to.
Open source, baby.
As I mentioned on Blueprint, anything that's really good, I keep for myself. Like, I'll never actually share it with other people, so you never have to worry about that. I'm just kidding. I'm trying to enter two bracketed order for a standard orb strategy. That's an open and range breakout strategy. I have a breakout box, and I want to send a sell with a stop loss and take profit. At the same time, I want to enter a buy with a target price, stop loss, and take profit. However, after I enter the sell, which goes through, and then I enter the buy, TradersPost appears to cancel the sell.
Yep.
What's going on with this one? Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, by default, TradersPost, when executing trades, will look to see if there are any open orders for that ticker, and it will cancel those orders. If there's no open position, or the signal is exiting the position that's open. And the reason why is because, like, if you're in a long position and you have a take profit and stop loss in the broker and you're trying to exit that position, we have to cancel those orders first before we can then send another order to exit the position. So that's the default behavior, but you can disable that. There's a section in that Tom has it pulled up there, cancel. There's two ways now actually to disable this. You can disable the behavior in your settings, but there's also a property in the webhook you can send called cancel, and it's a Boolean value, and it can have a value of true or false. And basically you can say for some signals, I want to disable the order canceling. It should be in there. I think I added that. Go to click what's new. I think I need to update the doc still, or it might be somewhere else.
Sorry, click on what?
What's new in the top left in the menu. Yeah, we talk about it here. So scroll down to the second section. So this was something that went live at the end of last week, or sorry, over the weekend. But basically, this didn't exist before. So now you have the ability to explicitly control the order canceling behavior from the webhook. So if you have order canceling enabled in your subscription, you could disable it from the signal. Or if you have it enabled, or sorry, the reverse, you can do the reverse as well. So you can enable it from the signal, or you can disable it. So this just gives you more explicit control over whether or not you want TradersPost to cancel any open orders for the ticker before we try to submit a new order to the broker. So I think this is relevant in those cases where people want to submit, 5 entry orders all at once. Then for all 5 of those entry orders, you would want to disable the canceling. But then later, say every one of those 5 entry orders fill, and now you have basically 10 open orders, a take profit and stop loss for each one of those entries. If your strategy later sends an exit signal to like exit that strategy outside of the take profits and stop losses that you have configured, then we have to cancel those orders first. So in that case, you would want to send cancel true. And then when we're planning the trade, we go to the broker account and we say, what are there any open orders for the ticker in the signal? And then we send cancel API calls for those 10 orders, and we wait for those orders to be canceled, and then we send the order to exit the open position. Go ahead, Tom.
Just to make sure I'm not missing something there. So when the cancel Boolean is sent, is it changing it within the subscription settings from then on, or do you have to
it's
send
just
it
for that? It's just for that trade.
Okay.
Yep. So we basically have like implicit order canceling via the settings, and now we have explicit order canceling via the signals, and it basically just overrides the setting that you have defined on the subscription side.
Got it. Okay, cool. Next question. All right, so that's all the questions we have actually for the last week. I'm sure Mike and John are eager to get back to the furnace. But before we do, I just wanted to bring up one thing because I was actually very surprised by this. Turns out I'm old enough where it turns out some people have forgotten who Nassim Nicholas Taleb is and his Inserto series. I don't know if you guys have run into this, but I speak to younger people. They don't know where Black Swan comes from. They don't know what Antifragile is. They don't necessarily know about fooled by randomness or anything like that. So I thought it might be nice on this a day of Black Swan to remind traders of this, that there's a way of factoring in or taking advantage of what seems like tail events or unexpected events that happen within markets. So essentially, if you go to the, I would recommend the Inserto series from Taleb, where you have Fooled by Randomness, where people are looking see patterns where there aren't any patterns. Black Swan, that this idea that tail events occur more often than we think. Antifragile, which is how can you benefit from volatility. So you use the fragility of a system in order to gain an advantage. And then the bet of Procrustes is if I remember correctly, that eventually something back, or eventually some volatility event is headed your way, and there's a way there's ways of taking advantage of that. Super useful. This is one of the series that completely changed my way of thinking, not just for markets, but also for my personal life as a trader. I started losing a lot less, and I started being a lot more diligent. I wanted to ask before I let you guys go, have you guys ever read the Inserto series or anything inside of it?
Not that, but I've read the Black Swan book.
Black Swan. Okay, perfect. Yeah, if you only read two, read Black Swan and Antifragile. Having words, new terms that you're able to tie certain concepts to rewrites your internal programming, and so that's why Black Swan is used and Antifragile is used so commonly within financial markets. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for everyone who's been watching. We always want to make sure that TradersPost is the best platform that it can be, and to that end, we take your feedback, your questions, and your concerns very much to heart. We'll be back next Tuesday for more office hours at 3 p.m. We'll be here on Thursday for Blueprint at 3 p.m. For tutorials and walkthroughs, and on Friday for After Hours, our market commentary show. Until then, we wish you guys a great week and happy trading.
Cheers, everyone.
See you guys.